Oh boy, we have a lot to cover in this video, and I mean a lot because the Genshin Impact 3.0 trailer is finally out and it's a whole 4-minute long video. And we finally have another look at Sumeru and heading one tiny step closer to uncovering the truth of Teyvat. So let's get right into it, shall we? We're not even gonna waste any time and just immediately aboard the train of thoughts and theories, with the train conductor being none other than me, the one and only Lore Enzo. This trailer starts off strong, and I mean very strong. The first line is literally, have you heard of Irminsul before? Like, yes sir, we have heard of Irminsul before. Please tell us more. Please, we are desperate. Anyway, I think that the first few lines here are referring to the current Dendro Archon, Lesser Lord Kusanali, the goddess of flowers. This would also mean that Kusanali has her consciousness directly connected to the Irminsul tree. And to give you a crash course on what an Irminsul tree is, these things are what we see in the end of domains. And the lore behind these things is that all of them are directly connected to the ley lines. And then ley lines are basically an interconnected system of roots that serve as veins for elements, memories, and basically the magic of the world. Which would also explain the whole sequence of events that happened in the 2.8 Golden Apple Archipelago event, where someone from the Fatui was experimenting with a machine that could alter people's brains. Or should we say memories? The whole Mirage Island things could also be a byproduct of altering the ley lines, since it also has the ability to turn memories into physical manifestations, just like how leyline outcrops and that hidden strife event works in terms of lore. Afterwards, the next sequence of lines come from what sounds like Kusanali or Nahida herself, where she seems to be talking about the previous Dendro Archon named the Greater Lord Rukkhadevata, the goddess of the woods. She also mentioned how she disappeared in the Great Calamity a few hundred years ago, which I 100% believe would be the Cataclysm, where every Archon had to go fight Kandria. Also note how she said disappear instead of die in this line. And while these lines are being said about Rukkhadevata, the scenes show the travelers standing around a huge, eerie-looking ruins. Then, apparently, the new Dendro Archon, which I guess would be Kusanali here, was born right after the disappearance of Rukkhadevata, where she was immediately taken back to Sumeru. Which makes me think, before Rukkhadevata left, did she just have a child right then and there, or did she like cut off her arm and then like planted it somewhere, and then the arm grew into Kusanali, like the process we do with plants? I don't know. Anyways, moving on. So apparently, I predicted how Sumeru's plotline will be heavily based around Kusanali's birthday. I didn't even have any solid backing. I just thought it would be funny because Kusanali is like a kid. Anyways, so we're told that Sumeru is going to be celebrating the Sabzeruz Festival, which commemorates the birth of Lesser Lord Kusanali. Fun fact, we were already introduced to this festival during the Windbloom event, where we talked with a scholar from Sumeru about the differences in festivals between Mondstadt and Sumeru. Sabzeruz, if we look at the etymology of the naming, came from the Persian language, which would mean day of grass, and the name Kusanali, if it's derived from the Pali language, also means kusa grass, which makes me think that Kusanali is the goddess of both grass and flowers, while her predecessor, Rukkhadevata, was the goddess of the woods, which is like all of them combined: trees, grass, flowers, etc. We are then introduced to Kole, one of my favorite characters in Genshin, since one of the main reasons why I got into Genshin lore was because of the manga. And can I just say, Hoyoverse is just making me cry at this point with the way they're portraying Kole's idolization of her older sister figure. Her similarly saying, reporting for duty, one of Amber's headbands in her vision design, the little doll they both have. She even named it Kole and Anbarm, which kind of sounds like Kole and Amber. The Withering, I'm honestly very excited for what this phenomenon means, because I already have some theories fired up and ready for why these are occurring. 1. Probably the Abyss Order again. 2. The Tori is up to no good. Or 3. Sumeru has messed up with the Irminsul tree and the ley lines way too much that it has caused a great decline in the climate of the land. Quite similar to the story of Dragonspine, where it used to be a lush and green mountain called Salvindagnir, but then the Skyfrost nail dropped and destroyed the Irminsul tree in the center of the mountain, and it started becoming ravaged by cold winters. This would also make sense since they mentioned how the withering originates from the depths of the world. The Akasha Terminal seems to be a pretty cool thing that we're going to be getting in Sumeru. It seems like this thing is going to allow us to access information. So, I don't know, it's probably like Google or something. The word Akasha also means sky or space in many traditional Indian cosmologies. And we all know that the sky in Genshin is pretty sus. Therefore, this object is also gonna be pretty sus, which is great for us because that means more lore to uncover. Next big lore plot point we're introduced to is the Divine Knowledge Capsule, which is said to give us the wisdom of the gods. Honestly, I don't even know how the people running the secret auction haven't been outright smited by the gods yet. Because we all know what happened to Orobashi in Inazuma, and Orobashi only wanted to read a book. Mark my words, our god shall return. From the context of the scenes being shown, it sounds like these are being said by the Edomites. And at first, I thought they were talking about an older god, perhaps the primordial god, seeing as though they are part of an ancient civilization. But on second thought, I think they are either talking about a fallen god from the Archon War, or more likely, they are talking about the previous Dendro Archon Rukkhadevata. I really do think they're all just deniers of the god of wood's death, just like all of you Signora fans. To further prove this point, the next few lines talk about the sages stopping the performance, and then the next few lines is how they see Lesser Lord Kusanali's birth as a confirmation of Greater Lord Rukkhadevata's death, which makes me more inclined to think that the they here are not referring to the sages, but instead referring to the people who still think Rukkhadevata is alive. This would also make so much more sense to Daneslev's line in the Tevat chapter storyline preview. The god of wisdom's enemy is wisdom itself, and the oasis of knowledge is a mirage in the desert of ignorance. In the city of scholars, there's a push for folly, yet the god of wisdom makes no argument against it. The desert of ignorance would refer to the Edomites since they still ignore the passing of the previous god. Thus, they are also situated in the desert. And the push for folly would probably be the stopping of the Sabzeruz Festival and the ignorance they spread for their old god. The god of wisdom makes no argument against it because maybe she too believes that Rukkhadevata is still out there. Maybe she knows for a fact that she does. Now we get to the weird device that's extracting energy from the ley line. Remember earlier how I mentioned that Sumeru is probably messing up the ley lines a little bit too much? Yeah, I think this is one of them. The next few lines talk about the Divine Knowledge Capsule once again, and it seems like it was taken by one of the Edomites. The Edomite boss who seems to have consumed the Divine Knowledge Capsule seems to be a lot more condescending than your average NPC, which would confirm that it was him who was the one who took the capsule. He also goes on about celebrating the birth of that god, which makes it sound like he has no regard for Kusanali. Then boom, he falls to the ground holding his head right after we see some red spiral hacking things in his sight. Man, it's almost like he was using some sort of device that was intended to control the flow of information and knowledge that probably hindered his consumption of the knowledge of the gods. Oh wait, that's exactly what the Akasha Terminal does. If we slow down this scene right here for a bit, we can see a red glow coming from his left ear. So it seems like the Akasha Terminal definitely did not want anyone to consume the knowledge of the gods. Which makes me think, wait, Traveler, get that thing off you! You literally read a forbidden book a few months ago! Oh no. By the looks of things, it seems like the sages in Sumeru are going to be one of the main antagonists or perpetrators of this story. Moving on, I think that this sphere right here has a huge connection with the giant ruin guard in the forest. Because I think that this sphere is the eye of the giant ruin guard. Plus, in this scene right here, we see a spherical container that's supposed to be housing something spherical as well. Almost like it's the same size of the sphere that the traveler was fighting. Which makes me scared and excited at the same time. Because it either means that we're fighting a big giant robot or we're going to be controlling this thing. So it's gonna make me cry or make me jump out of joy because big robot. It would be too risky to continue the Subzeros Festival at this point. Yeah, they say this as we literally see the traveler being blasted by a discount Death Star right here. And the big giant robot is moving. Are you really so ignorant? Or are you just in complete denial? I feel like this is either said by 1. The Abyss Lector, 2. One of the Sages, or 3. Il Dottore. I don't know, I don't really know which one, but pick your poison on those 3. Finally see the traveler facing the Irminsul tree until it cuts to the title screen and the words "The world forget me" is being spoken by who I think is the previous Dendro Archon Rukkhadevata, since it doesn't seem to sound like Kusanali or any of the other characters that were featured in this video. I don't really know what "The world forget me" means, but I can only guess. One of my guess is that she's pulling a Spider-Man No Way Home and making everyone forget about her. Another one is that this is just a recording of a memory of her that's before she left. You know, maybe it's a ley line recording. Her saying "the world forget me" before leaving seems to be pretty fitting, I guess. Or it could also mean the complete opposite. Perhaps she said some other words before that. Maybe the whole line is "don't let the world forget me," because that seems way more grammatically correct, I think. But who knows? I honestly do not know what that last line means. But I think that makes it even more fun to think about. You know, it's open ended. So please do leave in the comments below what that last line means in your opinion. Some of your personal theories, maybe you can share it down there as well. And some of your own thoughts on this new version trailer. Anyways, I'm gonna prepare to fight that big robot.